It's 1327, and the English crown is in turmoil. King Edward II has been imprisoned, and on the night of September 21st is murdered in a particularly horrifying manner. Or was he? Did he escape and instead live out his life in exile? The details surrounding this controversial king's death remain uncertain, making it one of history's enduring mysteries. If there's one thing most historians agree on, it's that Edward II was one of medieval England's least capable rulers. He is chiefly remembered for squandering his father, Edward I's, military gains in Scotland, and alienating his wife and barons by promoting personal favourites to positions of power. But how did Edward die? We know that Queen Isabella's patience with her husband snapped in 1326, and that she invaded England with her lover Roger Mortimer, who were living in exile in France. Edward was forced to abdicate and was then imprisoned at Berkeley Castle, where the official record states he was murdered, with, as legend would have it, the assistance of a red-hot poker. This story, however, is steeped in sensationalism and was likely a product of propaganda from Edward's enemies, or later chroniclers seeking to discredit him. The red-hot poker tale first appeared decades after his death, in writings by historians. This story may have been invented to emphasize Edward's alleged sexual relationships with men, which was considered scandalous and controversial in medieval England, especially among his detractors. Alternative theories about his death suggest he might have been smothered or otherwise quietly executed. But there is another theory surrounding his death. One that suggests he did not in fact die in Berkeley Castle. Did Edward somehow escape and live out his life in Europe? News of the king's death came from one man, Lord Berkeley. He dispatched a messenger to the 14-year-old King Edward III and his mother, Queen Isabella. The new king relayed this news to departing members of Parliament, and this news soon spread across the country as they returned home. As the source of the king's demise was one man, it could not be independently verified. Did he in fact die on that infamous night, or did he somehow escape? Was there any proof the king was dead? His funeral took place in December 1327, but his face was not exhibited to the public in any way, and there is no evidence that anyone tried to confirm his identity after the announcement of his death. A corpse was covered entirely and taken to what is now Gloucester Cathedral in a lead coffin, and buried 3 months later without showing the face. Only one chronicler refers to the ex-kings lying in state, and he mentions that his body was seen only superficially by the people. The royal hearse, covered in painted carvings, armour and candles, confirmed to people that Edward II was dead, and a wooden effigy of the king was clothed in royal garments and displayed above the coffin. But no one actually saw the corpse. Some of those present at the funeral later believed he was still alive in 1330. So if Edward did not die and somehow escaped, how did he do it, and where did he go? According to a letter sent to King Edward III in 1337 by an Italian priest called Manuele Fieschi, Edward II escaped and spent the remainder of his life in Europe. The letter claims that once Edward heard he was to be executed, he changed clothes with a servant and escaped by killing the gatekeeper. After laying low in Ireland for 9 months, he crossed into Europe and settled in an Italian abbey. The letter resides to this day in a French archive. It has been tested and is not a forgery. The body entombed at Edward's funeral may in fact have been the gatekeeper from the castle. The body was embalmed and may have been unrecognizable. In 1338, Edward III travelled to what is now Germany, where he met someone called William the Welshman, who claimed to be the king's father. Edward II was the first English monarch's son to be called the Prince of Wales. Claiming to be the king's father, however, was considered dangerous, and nobody knows what happened to William. In the Italian town of Sasima, there is a tradition that a king of England was buried there, and there is an empty medieval tomb said to be the place of his burial before his body was returned to England. So what really happened to Edward? The unsatisfactory answer is that nobody really knows for sure. The earliest chroniclers state that he died of natural causes. Those written after 1330 say he was murdered, either strangled or suffocated. Around 1340, stories starting to surface that he met his end via a red-hot poker. As for the man who informed the country of the king's death in 1327, Lord Berkeley, in 1330, Edward III overthrew his mother Queen Isabella and Roger Mortimer, and ascended to the throne. He summoned Parliament at Westminster, and after sentencing Mortimer to death for treason, asked Lord Berkeley exactly what had happened to his father, and how could he have died. Berkeley responded by not only saying he was not a murderer or an accomplice, but that he did not even know of the king's death until now.